But how has this speech been received in China and indeed the rest of the comments the President's made during the course of the visit? Let's go live now to Beijing, and joining us is Yang Rui, a senior anchor with CCTV in Beijing. He's the host of the Dialogue program. Yang Rui, great to talk to you once again. Can I ask what has been the reaction there in Beijing to the President's remarks today in the Australian Parliament?
David, we've got the message very clear that every nation has the right to chart its own course. And we hope that President Obama and indeed the U.S. government highly respect the agenda of China's modernization campaign and the pace of our liberalization of trade and investment. We've got the message that President Obama paid his tribute to war dead, starting the day with his respect for the war dead, the victims of the Nazi-Japanese aggression during the Pacific War, and in fact during those wartime we were allies in facing down the same threat, the same enemy. And today we are also in the same boat of fighting terrorism, because in his speech President Obama spoke of the 2002 Bali bombings in which over 100 Australian people, innocent people, were killed. And today, the Bali Island is not only known for the roadmap of climate change. China shares a lot of the common concerns about global warming, but also it has become a tourist attraction for more and more Chinese travelers. So terror, whatever its form, whatever its manifestations, wherever it comes, should be and will always be the common enemy of China, Australia, and the U.S.
Well,
I've also got the message very clear.
Well, he did, as
Go
you
ahead.
said, say that every nation has the right to chart its own course. But he also did deliver a strong message on human rights, the need for for human rights, rights of freedom, rights of the press, the right to freedom of religion, and the right for people to choose their own leader. He specifically mentioned that and said that communism has failed. How has that been received?
Capitalism has failed. If you look at Occupy Wall Street, well, democracy is said to be the early warning system, but it failed to prevent Lehman Brothers from collapsing, wreaking havoc with the rest of the world, and creating even humanitarian crisis. If you look at the Arab Revolution in North Africa, it has more to do with the unemployment rate of the young and internet generation than with the democracy. Libya, before the ouster and killing of Colonel Gaddafi, was among the richest of all African countries. He was overthrown not because of the prosperity of the economy, but because of someone who dared to say no to the American primacy in international politics. In the age of globalization, it is a multilateral mechanism for settling the disputes that is appealing to the mind and heart of the younger generation.
All right, but your message
when we talk about human rights,
yeah, please
human
go on.
rights, yes, it sounds beautiful. We are fans of a democracy. We respect the check and balance, proportional representation in the U.S. domestic democracy. But look at how the U.S. handles global international political order. If you look at the exit strategy of American military leadership, it's a disaster. Pretty soon, American troops will be evacuated from Afghanistan and already from Iraq. What happened and what is happening there is 4 million Iraqis were left homeless internally and externally. They became refugees. And the Shiite-led government will definitely enjoy pretty robust diplomacy with Iran, the Persian state, which is coming under attacks or bluffs of attacks because of its nuclear enrichment. The uranium enrichment program. Look at Afghanistan. 70% of the territory is under the influence and control of Taliban. So, what is the military leadership of the U.S. and its global vision for the 21st century? Of course, we're going to talk about the 21st century being the American century in the Pacific Ocean. David?
Well, you said that capitalism has failed and point to the military failures, I suppose, of the United States. Barack Obama, though, is the one who has withdrawn from Iraq and is planning to withdraw from Afghanistan in the coming years as well. And when we look at the military leadership of the United States, it is a clear message from the President on this visit that he wants that military leadership to continue in the Asia-Pacific. And that has included an announcement here in Australia of more American Marines being based on Australian soil. What does China think of that?
We understand that there is currently a transformational diplomacy about the U.S. Future in the Asia-Pacific region, broadly speaking. Now, since the end of the Second World War, America has successfully constructed the transatlantic alliance, rallying most of the Europeans behind it in defeating or holding back the Soviet influence and in leading to the end of the Cold War. Now, it's time, according to Secretary Clinton, for the U.S. to assume leadership in constructing the Trans-Pacific Partnership. And this time around, President Obama deserved the credit in pressing home the message of TPP, the Trans-Pacific Partnership. It's the a pan-Pacific free trade area in competition against the free trade area, a free trade framework between China and ASEAN, the 10+1, 10+3, 10+6, until lately 10+8, including Russia and the U.S. for the prosperous and booming trade area in the broad region of Asia-Pacific area. So I understand very well the message that President Obama delivers to this region. America is welcome as a world leader on condition that both sides would benefit from the liberal international economic order instead of playing upon domestic politics at a critical moment when his approval rating is well below 40%. I got the message which is actually delivered to the domestic audience of President Obama that he's accused of being weak, humble, and of having too much reconciliation with Iran and perhaps RMB of the PRC. I think this is domestic politics. I don't think China should be singled out as a scapegoat for its domestic bipartisan wrangling.
All right, so you think the currency bashing that we've seen and the demands from Barack Obama from him for China to respect intellectual property, that all of this is playing to a domestic audience back in the United States. What specifically, again, do you think about more American troops being based in Australia? What's the Chinese attitude towards Australia's role in this?
A return of the U.S. to the Asia-Pacific region would start with the move of triggering and keeping alive the American traditional alliance with the 5 countries: Japan, South Korea, Australia, Thailand, and the Philippines. Americans need to remind China that we are here, and these alliances have been ignored during the last decade of fighting the Taliban and in Iraq, the war in Iraq. We understand that over 60% of American economic stakes exist in the Pacific region. However, and I also understand that the General Douglas MacArthur claimed the Pacific from Japan from the port of Darwin in the Second World War. However, China is participating in China is not only showing and displaying its growing assertiveness for the naval expansion, but it's justified. If you look at the sizable population and the growing economic stakes throughout the world, we are the second biggest economy. We are the biggest trading partner of Japan, South Korea, and most other member states of ASEAN. So we do need to have our own reasonable, proactive defense policy by having our new blue water navy. This is justifiable. We have such a long coast. And we also send our fleet to fight piracy in the Somali waters. We also get involved with peacekeeping missions. By the way, China is the only country of P5 of the UN Security Council that contributes the biggest number of peacekeeping troops. It's not just about extraction of natural resources with regard to the local human rights record in Sudan, Zimbabwe. We are being demonized.
Okay, but that's the argument for China making the expansion that it is on the military front. But what does China think about Australia facilitating this greater American military presence in the region, given Australia has such an important economic trade relationship with China? is there any concern being directed at Australia?
I think the fact that the Australian government has agreed to deploy American troops in Darwin has sent a mixed message, if not a wrong signal, to the Chinese audiences here, because we believe you have somehow been held hostage by the American global ambition and the agenda of American domestic politics. Well, by the way, the number of 250 is a stupid figure for the Chinese. If you turn to your Chinese friends and figure out what the implications of 250 mean. But I believe pretty soon that number will be increased to a few thousand of American Marines. I hope they will not be deployed pretty soon because of the upcoming Christmas season. They're going to have family reunions. I do hope, I do show my sympathy with their lonely wives. I hope the American global commitments for their security ambition will not be based on the sacrifice of huge casualties, death tolls, and body bags. If you look at the heavy casualties of American troops, 6,000 of them were killed for the killing of Osama bin Laden. I mean, you got to keep in mind that in the age of 21st century, it's a matter of how to make sure that the multilateral security mechanism will pay off. Without China's participation in a constructive way, nothing of global relevance will be fixed, will be tackled effectively. This is the message that I deliver to my Australian friends.
Yang Rui, anchor with China Central Television, thank you so much for joining us live from Beijing.
Thank you, David.
There you go, a very different perspective on the announcements that we've seen from President Obama here in Australia, a Chinese perspective there to put in some context how this has gone down in the region.